So as in the doc, we will be discussing inline vulnerability management and what that means. So let me share my screen so we can understand this. Okay, so the dashboard for security folks. So we present our vulnerability information in this nice list. What we have to rely on right now for communicating more information, so for security application professionals and the like, they want to know more about vulnerabilities. So the information we have today is all inside of a modal, kind of meh, which is fine for now. But the goal is to be able to present more information to the user and actually present more interactions to the user as well. And then in this dashboard, you can see how big these modals are starting to get. They're gonna start getting much taller too, as we give more opportunities to interact with vulnerabilities inside of GitLab. Some of these interactions are dismissing, creating an issue, seeing when the issue is created, jumping off to that, understanding the commenting, which is newer. This is GDK, so it's going in soon with some of the details you may have seen from the last design review, as well as there might be a solution that can be added to, so we can have a solution area and how to actually fix this ECB mode is insecure, which means this is gonna start getting packed. And we've already seen some of the hoops we've had to jump through with adding comments. It's kind of wonky today. So hopefully we can move this to an inline experience, which is the goal. And for some more background, I pulled up a competitor, and this is all the information that an actual competitor shows about a vulnerability. There's some different nuances in the vulnerability type, but they have like an example with code snippets and all of this great information. And this is the thing that application security professionals love. They love to see more about the vulnerability than just like the type and the file. They want to know where it came from. They want to know a general overview. They can jump to documentation. They can jump to more info, which will then give them even more cool graphics, which I'm a little jealous of. So with that said, we want to implement something that presents our information inline so that you can click on it and then hopefully it would expand. And then you could maybe expand multiple, compare. So that said, any questions up until now?
Andy, I was just kind of wondering, like, how did you get to inline versus maybe opening up kind of like a issue pattern, right? Is it that people are comparing? Because that was a really good point.
Yes, so we've talked about moving to an issue pattern, but we can't today due to how vulnerabilities are injected into our system at GitLab. They're not objects. First class objects that I've been told, like you would see as like a merge request has its own page, and issues have their own page as well. So we've had to kind of hunker down and do the best we can with this list for the time being.
What do you mean by that? Like who's deciding whether it's a first class item or who, like where'd that decision come from, I guess?
So when it was implemented a long time ago, they came in as these semi-abstract, like a vulnerability is abstract compared to even what we think of as to-dos are. And we've been trying to go through several product discoveries to figure out if they can become first-class vulnerabilities, because then you get all the good metadata, you can link them to issues, they can almost become an issue in of themselves. Get like open close status, we can know when they actually come in, so we can report times, we can report SLA times, all these cool things. That is out of my hands. I did a little product discovery work. It went all the way up. I think it's circling around the top of engineering right now. But right now they're focused on filling out the tools we have and making sure that we are reducing the number of false positives. As you can see, in reality, we don't have over all of these are kind of a lot of false positives that we have. So that's kind of the edict I've been given. So in lieu of that, we will create a better experience, I think, in general than just a modal, is having something in line. To answer, hopefully I answer your question with kind of a non-answer, but I don't know. I've been trailing it around. It's been a couple months, more than a couple months since we talked about that. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I'm just unsure of, like, are you saying there's technical limitations that mean that we're not able to potentially create a page for each of these things? So there's restrictions around what the UX can be, and we're working within that. And do we know what the technical restrictions are and why those are technical restrictions?
In terms of the UX, yes, the technical restrictions are enabling us to have to go a different route. I probably won't be able to articulate the technical restrictions as well as somebody else could. I can dig up some first class object vulnerability product discoveries that we've embarked on and finished and still kind of ended with kind of like a, so I can do that. But yeah, that's mostly how vulnerabilities are found and detected within while you're in a pipeline. As the job detects that vulnerability, it will then surface that, and then how you go about remediating it has all sorts of weird spiderweb problems from what I've been told. So hopefully that'll get done soon. Even if it does, it'll make this even more cooler. So I will show some designs. And I'm picking this up off of Tim's work. So a little bit of this has been done already by Tim. I'm just kind of taking it over finish line as he moves on to fulfillment. So this, in essence, is how we would want to present this type of information instead of in a modal. So we have a details section and a recent activity section. And then in the details, this can get much taller, of course, but we're inline, so it's not that big of a deal. And then the activity section will actually, it will kind of grow with each other. Imagine if there was more activity and it had to grow down, so we can do that. Sorry, my dog is going crazy. And then thinking through some of the different instances. So we have nothing selected, right? And then we have a hover state, which begins to show that caret, which we do in the project overview and group overview. And then once selected, we'll have the caret down. We will bold the title of the vulnerability and then bring the details down into here, as well as any recent activity and then your actions as well. So that's kind of how we're laying it out. Trying to think of it as modular as possible. And then when we start feeding more information into it, like if the vulnerability was dismissed, we'd see that recent activity with the ability to add a comment here. We would also see this is kind of adding a comment. Once you've done it, you can just go ahead and add it. So we don't have that modal flying around. And then this is the vulnerability with that comment included. And then thinking along further, an activity log of dismissal and undismissals. So something that we've been kicking around and it's been asked of in a few issues is there needs to be some level of compliance built into this so we can show when things were dismissed, when the comment was added, and if it was undismissed and by who. So we want to be able to track that. So in case we need to have like another accordion inside of accordion, we can do that. I think it's a possibility. And then thinking through some other cases too. So for that solution I mentioned, you know, we can have this button here that says fix with merge request as opposed to like jamming all the, we had many buttons and button drop downs in this area here, especially in the modal. So we want to reduce that. So being able to put it right with the solution, telling you how to implement it. As well as, oh, sorry.
I'm so sorry. Can you go back to, I think it was just the previous screen that had the accordion within an accordion?
Oh, yeah. So we were kind of asked, not asked, but it was just mentioned like it's good to see the full activity of a vulnerability. So we can show recent and then we can show all of it if that's desired.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm just wondering about there's an inconsistent pattern between how you're handling the caret in the top accordion and then how it's being handled in the nested accordion. Have you given that any thought?
In terms of direction or how it appears?
Yeah, so it looks
Or-
like in the nested
Yeah.
accordion, it displays by default, whereas in the top level, it doesn't. And then also the placement looks a little different. And then I'm wondering, because, you know, caret placement, gosh, there's so many feels around caret placement. But the one inside the nested accordion seems like a pretty standard placement, whereas the one in the top level accordion.
Do you think it's more related to this area? Is that what you mean? Or is it that it's just doesn't appear when it's not active?
I would say, I mean, I am used to seeing carets either as the most left or most right aligned element in the accordion. And then I guess my other question is the full activity log. How big can those get? How many items could be in that?
Well, since the users can easily toggle on and off it, I guess it can be as tall as the page, right? I don't think there's necessarily a limitation, just a limitation in terms of activity that we would expect inside of a vulnerability. We haven't had a lot of research done in terms of like what's normal in terms of dismissing, undismissing, dismissing with a comment, because we've just added in that dismiss with a comment feature. So there was just some mention from the compliance, someone like compliance minded was saying it'd be good to think that through. But this whole mock by no means would actually be part of the MVC. It's just showing how we might be able to expand the section once it gets, you know, once the activity is no longer as recent, right?
Yeah, I'd be tempted to go and find a vulnerability that has a whole heck of a lot of activity on it and use that as kind of the straw man for designing what's probably an edge case, but probably a pretty relevant edge case, and think about how you might use some sort of interaction. So what I am envisioning in my mind, which may or may not be accurate, is you've got a vulnerability that has a ton of activity, and yeah, now you've just got, boom, a whole page's worth of activity with a lot of wasted real estate.
Yeah, I had a similar thought when you mentioned that the activity could grow vertically. So you have this list of issues, and then you're nesting the details of those inside there. I mean, my first instinct was a sidebar format, where I select an issue and then a sidebar slides out, and in that I have a really nice vertical space where I can have threaded conversation or excuse me, review the activity, a lot of activity if that's the case. And I kind of wondered too, you know, what's the average amount of activity around one of these issues, and what's kind of the max that we expect, because I think that could really matter here in terms of how to structure the design.
Certainly. Yeah, I think if we actually look at, let me pull up. Sorry, prototyping, security dashboard. So this is our dashboard as it is in use today. And usually when something is dismissed, that means it's no longer a problem. So we find it rare, or we've seen it to be rare that there would be anything other than the dismissal or a dismissal comment. Usually when there's an issue open, that seems to be about it as well. And then when there's a solution available, which is probably less than 2% of the vulnerabilities we find, we can actually give a solution to, roughly, don't quote me on that, but very, very small number. And then that would then be involved too. But hopefully we, you know, are able to grow the prevalence of having solutions for vulnerability. So average doesn't seem to be a lot, doesn't seem to be more than being dismissed or being flagged, because once it's an issue, it goes into the GitLab system as an issue, and it's discussed in a more normal manner, right? but that's something we certainly need to find out more about.
I think what also led me there was it a competitor UI you showed that was a full page?
Yeah.
And it seemed pretty dense with content. And so I was, you know, with that in mind, thinking of trying to house that type of content in a space like this. But maybe that wasn't.
Sorry, switching around. Yeah, it's definitely compact.
I mean, with the sidebar, you get things like fixed buttons,
Mm-hmm.
you know, fixed footer buttons and stuff like that. It just seems more forgiving in terms of content volume than something like this, I guess is what I'm getting at.
Hey, Andy, is it important to look at the recent activity with the details? Because is there a lot of cross-referencing between the two?
Maybe not cross-referencing, but it's good to be aware. The activity is almost like a status, if you would say. So knowing that a issue has been created for this, so that you don't need to replicate the issue and someone's on it, and then you can jump into that issue to have more conversation. When an issue is created, all of this is put into the issue description. So you can go on about solving this vulnerability if it needs discussion through the issue. And then knowing who dismissed it, when it was dismissed, and why it was dismissed is really important, at least to people who are like grooming the list. And knowing that a solution has been created but not yet merged.
Yeah, I was just wondering, since it seems like a lot of the topics that are coming up are in relation to real estate space. And if the density is different between the details and the recent activity, or the likelihood of the density being different, maybe they should be handled differently. But yeah, if it's needed for them to see it at the same time, then that makes sense.
Do we use a sidebar pattern aside from where, this can be poorly framed, aside from where we use a sidebar pattern? The issues and MRs, you know? The common places that we're used interacting. I don't know if we use like a slide out, that's it, slide out sidebar panel. Do you know, anybody?
I think everything that's considered an issuable. So I believe like milestones might be that. Snippets might also have it, I'm not sure. Okay. Yeah. Can you show the your next screen that had something about create a merge request?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was just curious here, like, what is that the main action now? And I'm curious about the placement of the main action along with the sub action of creating an issue and dismissing the vulnerability. It's kind of unclear, like which is the main one, and I don't know because I haven't worked with vulnerabilities, so I'm just curious what your thoughts are there.
The main action in our mind should be the user will fix it with a merge request. So we know, so our tools have found that this non-constant string passed by thing has a solution, and we know what the solution is. And in fact, we can actually implement that solution when you click fix with merge request. So we create a brand new branch, put the patch that we know is into that branch, and all you have to do is merge it. But with that said, there might be further discussion needed. This might be a false positive. So it's really hard to gauge the priority order at this time, since this solution area is still rather new. It's only a couple milestones old. So that's another thing we'll probably need research on. I tried doing a little bit of research on it. If you remember that usability hub test, where we did some click testing and questions to find out the balance between having a download patch button, and then as well as giving the option to fix with merge request, along with dismiss vulnerability, dismiss with comment, and create issue, which will probably have to be readdressed as well. So it's kind of unknown, but my hopes and dreams were that it would kind of just be nested in its little area, so that when the solution is there with a merge request, you can just act on it, because there are times where this will not be present, and then it's just solution.
Yeah, this problem just keeps following you, doesn't it, Andy?
It's just gonna, yeah, until we turn it into full auto remediate, which means in the MR where the vulnerability is found, we actually just fix it for you.
Yeah.
That would be awesome.
I think Tori's bringing up a really good point, though, around because it's the primary CTA, the placement doesn't really indicate that. And part of it might also be that the shape of the button makes it not, I'm going to say this very technically, it doesn't look buttony, it looks label-y.
Yeah, our 24 pixel buttons are just, every time I use them, they come across that way.
Yeah.
It's weird.
What does close do?
Yes, so that was one of the terms I've been messing around with, because today we use cancel. So close would then collapse. We can use a collapse, but we always use collapse up in the top right. We have that expand collapse that we've seen in our settings, right? So I think some rephrasing of that button could be in order, because close is a terrible word because we close issues and close merge requests and we close things in GitLab. So closing as an active like interaction is
So could you not click on the
right
arrow for the accordion to collapse it?
You can, yeah. Do you think that's okay enough to rely on just that one element, or should we?
Oh, go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead, Alexis.
I was just saying, you mentioned in settings that it's in the top right. Usually that's where users expect to see the expand collapse. So maybe the caret goes over there. I mean, I'm not sure, I haven't tested it, but that would be my first gut reaction there.
Someone tell me, where do we where is our caret placement normally left aligned or right aligned in the accordion? Does anyone know off the top of their heads?
Left.
Yeah, so we have like a tree structure that is left aligned, and then we have accordions that have that collapse that's on the right. So we have kind of two patterns that haven't been fully fleshed out, I think, and they're getting mixed up.
Got it. Yeah, because I think, so I absolutely agree that I think just relying on the standard interaction pattern of an accordion is plenty here and would get rid of some of your button clutter. Yeah, and then even if so, I mean, look, I don't have strong feelings about left or right aligned carets. I would just be thinking about how to be consistent with what's already out there. That might mean that you need to think about the arrangement of the content in the top level of your accordion. So maybe, like, I'm not saying this is the answer, but maybe that means if the caret's on the left, then the status is on the right. But I would fall back on just, users know how to use accordion.
Here's our accordion pattern today. So we carry that line down.
I guess the other one we saw, Andy, was in the settings where it kind of has the collapse and expand to the right for the table rows.
Yeah, so what Andy's showing right now is what I would call a tree, what we have in the design system as a tree. And then we also have a component called accordion. Neither of them have design guidelines written up, which I think is causing this conversation right now.
Yeah, so here's our expand collapse, which we could use. I would hate to persist, even though I think it's fine, but I would hate to persist this expand button throughout that entire 20 entry list all the way down it, right?
Well, accordions are part of our short-term design system push, aren't they? Tori, you're the one to answer that. You're yeah. So maybe this is something to pick up as a short-term component to look at and think about whether this pattern we're looking at now, that's a pretty non-standard accordion pattern. People know what the caret means.
Yeah, I think so.
I think you're right, Tori, though, that there's a difference here between a tree view and an accordion view, and we need to be clear about what those things are.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm all for rearranging this. Actually, this whole confidence column needs to come between severity and vulnerability, so that it can be severity and confidence can be parsed at the same time by the user, which means we can shift right almost everything and give the ability to on hover, on tab, present that caret, and then the whole area is just one big hot button that then would expand and collapse.
If Tori hasn't already signed you up for the accordion component as part of the design system, but I shall be disappointed.
It's
Who's gonna do alerts?
it's actually assigned under fulfillment. So
So
That's
Tim
actually
started all this.
great. No, that's perfect. Yeah, exactly. Exactly what I was going to say. So let Tim deal.
I don't have a lot of context here how folks use this screen and these tools today and what our standard conventions are, but the buttons definitely were confusing to me and made me think in a lot of ways. And even now with the adjustment of making what looked to be a tag originally into more of a button with the fix, it's still confusing because the create issue is bottom right, which gives it priority. But then fix with merge request is full color, which gives it priority. And then they're both green. So I am just bouncing between them, trying to understand which one is the priority.
Yeah.
And then add to that dismiss vulnerability is orange, and I don't really know why. And again, maybe there's, users have some context here that I don't have, but it's definitely stopping me in my tracks and confusing me as to why those two are both green, but in different places, which one is the most important and recommended action. So I think there's some room to explore that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the dismiss vulnerability style is carried across from the close issue style. The create issue is kind of following the new issue button that we have inside of issues. And the fix with merge request is green. We don't have that anywhere else. So yeah, it's a challenge because we wanted to kind of keep this area as a unit, for no other reason, knowing that this might not be there, or you might only be able to download a patch, right? So instead of like intercepting them here, but I'm open to having it both way, like having this move over, and we could even think about doing like a split button drop down like we have today for finding a solution or fixing with merge request. We use a split button where you could either create an issue or fix with a merge request, because those are both actions that you're taking towards fixing the vulnerability, right? So that kind of made some sense.
Does the current modal on your last iteration on the modal, Andy, does that have the drop down, or am I confusing that with something else? Where it didn't have the fix merge request, fix with merge request, where it was actually like a drop down to create an issue or fix with merge request. Is that the current iteration, or?
Yes.
Okay.
If I can pull that up quickly, we only have a minute or so. This is kind of how it looks today. So resolve with merge request is a button, and then when you drop down, you can see the create issue or download patch, which we still have to kind of suss out. So these are the primary actions, and then once the adding comment becomes available, we'll actually add that in. So now we'll have multiple primary actions that you can do. So it's a challenge, but thank you all for the feedback. I've got some good notes to take and run with. It's always fun doing security stuff, isn't it?
Can I ask a
always
last question?
Yeah, sure.
A last question really quick. What's the common use case here? Am I coming in and going directly to an issue and doing a deep dive and addressing it, you know, all in one, or am I kind of browsing issues and trying to figure out if I need or want to take action on one or more of them in this list at this moment? Because again, I'm kind of going back to that, the expanding, collapsing accordion, and especially on a smaller laptop, it could be kind of awkward to try to sit there and open and close different issues and investigate. You're constantly dealing with that vertical real estate and maybe unpredictable height of each item. So that's maybe something that.
Yeah, the common use case would be to just kind of learn as much as you can about this. So pollution, I don't know what that means. But know that it's HackerOne, which is one of our bug bounty programs. It's probably a real thing that needs to be addressed. So here you would probably create an issue to then address it so that it can no longer be a vulnerability in our system. And then something like this, we already has an issue created, so you're good. So Steve created this issue, that's awesome. And then anything that's dismissed, it's already, you know, kind of, it's what we would call whitelisted or dismissed, meaning that not a problem, false positive, not a big deal. So it's really just coming in, maybe opening everyone, but really the users are focused in on the critical high medium. These low, it's probably not a big deal, or it's in a project they don't care about, which we give them this little, these are all in tests, JS or NPM tests. So it's probably not a big deal because it's not in production. But again, we just try to give them as much information as possible so they can act on it. And the prevailing theory was doing that inline would give them more opportunity to give us more opportunity to fill that with information that they need, as opposed to modal.
You got a ton of feedback, which is great. And you always do such a good job of taking feedback and being very thoughtful about it after the fact. Something if I were in your shoes that I would be tempted to do is to just go sketch for a while, because this is pretty high fidelity, which means it's a lot of effort to make changes to it. Oh
yeah, I have my ugly stuff here.
Yeah, and just start moving stuff around and thinking about different ways that you might group things, because I think that's a lot of what we're talking about here is standard patterns and then grouping related content.
Yeah, definitely. And there is even nice big area where we can park 2 semis where we could have those flyouts too if we needed to. So I'm actually going to explore that.
Yeah, that's cool.
Well, probably not. No one's using a 27-inch monitor, but they could be. You know. Awesome. Well, thank you very much, everyone. Appreciate your time. Appreciate your feedback.
Thanks, Andy.
And I will keep you all filled in on how this goes.
Awesome. Can't wait. Thank you.
All right.
Thanks, Andy.